In the heart of Africa lies a country that could have been the richest on earth. Beneath its soil sleeps an empire of gold, cobalt, diamonds, copper, coltan, and uranium, the raw veins of modern civilization. Yet, above that same soil, millions live in unbearable poverty. Children mine with bare hands and rivers run red with blood. This is the paradox of the Democratic Republic of Congo, a land blessed with unimaginable wealth, yet cursed by the world's hunger for it. Every smartphone, every electric car, every computer in the modern world likely carries within it a piece of Congo, but few ever ask what that costs. The story of Congo is not only a story of minerals, it is a story of greed, survival, and the global race for control of Africa's wealth, a silent war that has lasted for more than a century. Congo is not just a country. It is a mirror reflecting everything humanity has done wrong in its pursuit of power and profit. It stretches from the heart of Central Africa to the edges of the Atlantic Ocean, encompassing a rainforest larger than Western Europe and rivers powerful enough to light an entire continent. Yet, despite this abundance, the people of Congo remain among the poorest on earth. How could this be? How could a nation so rich be so broken? To understand that, one must go back to the beginning, to a time when Africa's borders were drawn not by its people, but by foreign powers who saw the continent as a map of opportunities to exploit. In the late 19th century, King Leopold II of Belgium laid claim to the Congo as his personal property. Not a colony, his personal possession. He named it the Congo Free State, but it was anything but free. Under Leopold's rule, millions of Congolese men, women, and children were enslaved, mutilated, and killed, victims of one of the most brutal regimes in history. The purpose? Rubber and ivory. The wealth of the land flowed outward, while suffering flowed inward. When Belgium eventually took control from the king, it did not end the exploitation. It merely changed its management. For decades, Belgian corporations extracted Congo's minerals to fuel the Industrial Revolution of Europe. Congolese labor built the fortunes of families and nations that never once set foot in Africa. Then came independence in 1960, a moment of hope that quickly turned to chaos. Patrice Lumumba, the young nationalist leader who dreamed of an independent Congo free from Western control, was assassinated only months after taking office. His death marked not the beginning of freedom, but the continuation of control. Hidden this time under new names and new systems, the Cold War turned Congo into a pawn on a global chessboard. Western governments and corporations ensured that whoever ruled Congo would serve their interests. Mobutu Sese Seko, who ruled for over 3 decades, became the embodiment of that system, a dictator supported by the West, enriching himself while the nation fell apart. Billions of dollars in mineral wealth vanished into offshore accounts, while the people of Congo were left in the dark, literally and figuratively. But Congo's story did not end there. When Mobutu's reign finally collapsed in the 1990s, the world expected rebirth. Instead, it witnessed the deadliest conflict since World War II. The First and Second Congo Wars drew in 9 African nations and more than 20 armed groups. Officially, it was about power and security. Unofficially, it was about control of the world's richest mineral deposits. More than 6 million people died, not from bombs, but from hunger, disease, and displacement caused by endless fighting. Entire towns were wiped out. Children became soldiers. Women suffered unspeakable violence. The war became so complex that it was called Africa's World War. Yet through it all, the minerals kept flowing, smuggled through borders, traded for weapons, and sold to global companies that fueled the digital age. Gold, diamonds, cobalt, tin, tungsten, and coltan, the lifeblood of modern technology, passed through Congo's suffering hands to reach the factories of Europe, America, and Asia. The more the world advanced, the poorer Congo became. Today, the same pattern continues, though in quieter, more sophisticated ways. International corporations and local elites have replaced colonial officers, and trade contracts have replaced whips. But the principle remains. Those who control Congo's wealth rarely live in Congo. At the heart of the modern battle is cobalt, a metallic element essential for lithium-ion batteries that power electric cars, smartphones, and renewable energy storage. More than 70% of the world's cobalt comes from Congo. Yet, for every ton mined, there are stories of children descending into dark, hand-dug tunnels, earning a few dollars a day under life-threatening conditions. The world's clean energy transition, ironically, is being powered by the dirtiest of human suffering. In the Katanga region, massive open-pit mines owned by foreign conglomerates stretch for miles. Chinese, American, and European companies compete fiercely, securing deals worth billions. But little of that money reaches the people. Infrastructure remains broken, schools are underfunded, and hospitals lack basic equipment. The contrast between resource wealth and human poverty could not be starker. Every piece of technology in your hand or on your desk is connected to this reality. The more connected we become globally, the more disconnected we remain from the source of that connection, the Congolese miner. But it is not just about minerals. It is about sovereignty. Congo's struggle symbolizes Africa's broader struggle for control over its own destiny. For too long, the continent's wealth has been extracted in the name of progress, but that progress has always been for someone else. In 2023, new alliances began to form. African leaders started questioning the old economic models, calling for fairer trade and control over natural resources. The Pan-African spirit that once fueled liberation movements is returning, this time with economic and environmental consciousness. Congo is no longer merely a victim. It is a potential leader in the fight for a new global balance. However, the challenges remain immense. Corruption, political instability, and foreign interference continue to cripple progress. Armed groups in eastern Congo still control vast mineral-rich territories, funding their operations through illegal mining. Neighboring countries are accused of benefiting from smuggled minerals, while international buyers turn a blind eye to the origins of their supply chains. Global headlines rarely mention Congo unless there is violence or scandal. Yet behind the silence lies one of the most crucial questions of our time: who really owns Africa's wealth? The story of Congo is not isolated. It connects to the story of the world, of how resources move, how power shifts, and how humanity measures progress. If justice is ever to be real, then Congo's transformation will be its ultimate test. Because in many ways, the war for Africa's wealth is not fought with armies anymore. It is fought with contracts, currency, and influence, through debt, trade, and technology. And the battlefield is not just Congo. It is every African nation that sits atop valuable natural resources, yet remains poor. The irony is brutal. Africa holds nearly one-third of the planet's known mineral reserves. Its soil feeds the world. Its mines power technology. Its rivers could electrify the continent. Yet its people are often denied the benefits of that abundance. To many Africans, Congo represents both the wound and the warning, a reminder of what happens when a nation's wealth is used against its own people. From Kinshasa's bustling streets to the dense forests of Kivu, the scars of history are visible everywhere. But so are the signs of resilience. A new generation of Congolese activists, journalists, and entrepreneurs is rising, determined to reclaim their nation's narrative. They are demanding transparency from their leaders and accountability from corporations. They are saying enough is enough. This movement is not anti-globalization. It is about fair globalization. It is about ensuring that Africa is not forever the supplier of raw materials while others build empires on its back. It is about rewriting the rules of ownership, production, and profit, and the world is beginning to notice. Western nations that once dominated the resource game are now facing competition from emerging powers. China has become deeply entrenched in Congo's mining sector, investing heavily in infrastructure and production. Russia, Turkey, and Middle Eastern nations are entering the arena too. Each claims to offer partnership, but each has its own interests. The Congolese government now stands at a crossroads, whether to continue trading short-term gains for long-term dependency or to take control of its own resource destiny. The choice is not simple. International markets are complex and global demand pressures are immense. Yet, without decisive reform, the cycle of exploitation will continue, only under new flags. For decades, the story of Congo has been told by outsiders. But slowly, Congolese voices are reclaiming it. Artists, filmmakers, and historians are reinterpreting their nation's suffering as a lesson, not a curse. They speak of a Congo that could one day stand not as the victim of global greed, but as the heart of a new Africa, strong, united, and independent. But that transformation requires courage from within and from without. It requires a world willing to confront its own hypocrisy, a world that claims to support human rights and sustainability while buying minerals mined by children and sold through corrupt networks. Until that changes, the war for Africa's wealth will continue, not on battlefields, but in boardrooms and trade deals, hidden behind the language of development and diplomacy. Yet hope remains. The same land that has been the scene of so much suffering still holds the promise of renewal. Congo's rivers could generate electricity for all of Central Africa. Its fertile land could feed millions. Its minerals, if managed fairly, could fund education, infrastructure, and innovation. But for that to happen, Congo must first win the most difficult battle of all, the battle for ownership of its own future. The 21st century has transformed the world's perception of Africa, but in the heart of that transformation lies the same old struggle: who benefits from its wealth? And once again, the Democratic Republic of Congo stands at the center of it all. The world is entering a new industrial revolution, one built not on oil, but on technology and clean energy. Electric vehicles, renewable batteries, artificial intelligence, and defense systems all depend on minerals: cobalt, lithium, tantalum, and nickel. Congo's soil holds more of these than almost any nation on Earth. This reality has turned Congo into a global prize once more. From Washington to Beijing, from Paris to Moscow, policymakers, investors, and military strategists all have Congo on their maps. But unlike in the 19th century, the race for control is not openly colonial. It is economic, technological, and diplomatic, a new form of empire without flags. China was among the first to move strategically. Over the past 2 decades, Chinese state-owned enterprises have invested billions of dollars in Congolese infrastructure, roads, and mines. In exchange, they secured mining concessions for cobalt and copper, the metals that will power the world's next generation of batteries. In places like Kolwezi and Lubumbashi, massive open-pit mines owned or partnered with Chinese firms stretch across the horizon. Workers operate under the blazing sun, trucks rumble day and night, and vast quantities of minerals leave the country, destined for factories in Asia that will produce the components for electric cars and electronics. China presents its approach as partnership through development. Minerals for infrastructure, highways, hospitals, and power plants are built in exchange for long-term access to resources. But critics argue that the balance remains uneven. Much of the labor is foreign, and profits flow abroad. Environmental degradation and unsafe labor conditions persist. Meanwhile, Western nations, long dominant in Africa's mining sectors, have grown uneasy. For decades, companies from Belgium, France, the UK, and the US maintained control over Congo's resources through legacy contracts and multinational operations. Now they find themselves competing with an emerging power that plays by different rules. The result is a quiet, yet intense global rivalry, a modern scramble for Congo, fought through economics rather than armies. In Washington, policymakers warn that allowing one nation to dominate cobalt production could pose a strategic threat. In Brussels, debates continue over ethical sourcing, as the European Union attempts to introduce regulations for responsible minerals. In Kinshasa, however, these discussions often feel distant because the reality on the ground has not changed. For the average Congolese miner, the global talk of ethics means little when survival is at stake. In places like Lualaba, children as young as 10 still crawl through narrow shafts, hacking at rocks with basic tools, breathing in dust, risking collapse, all for a handful of dollars. Their minerals will pass through several middlemen, lose their traceability, and end up in the hands of companies that promise conflict-free supply chains. The contradiction is striking. The world's clean energy revolution, marketed as a leap toward sustainability, is being powered by unsustainable suffering, and yet the Congolese people are not blind to this irony. More than ever before, there are movements calling for reform, from local cooperatives demanding better wages to civil society groups tracking illegal exports. Activists are using technology to map where resources go and expose corruption networks that profit from their country's pain. In 2022, the Congolese government began renegotiating major mining contracts, including those with Chinese firms, citing unfair terms and a lack of transparency. President Felix Tshisekedi declared that Congo could no longer accept deals that enriched others while leaving its own people poor. The move sparked of international debate. Was Congo finally asserting control or simply reshuffling the players in the same old game? Across Africa, this question resonates deeply. From Zambia to Guinea, from Niger to Ghana, nations are asking the same thing. If we supply the world's wealth, why do our people remain poor? Congo's experience has become a cautionary tale, but also a source of awakening. African nations are beginning to discuss regional cooperation, a united strategy for managing their shared resources. The African Continental Free Trade Area, launched in 2021, represents a step toward that dream. But economic unity requires political courage, and courage often comes at a cost. For global powers, the stakes are enormous. Whoever influences Congo's resource policies will indirectly shape the future of global manufacturing and energy. That's why the country is now a central topic in international diplomacy. Behind every speech on sustainability or human rights, there are negotiations, often hidden, always strategic. The global competition extends far beyond cobalt. Congo's forests store vast amounts of carbon, making the nation critical to climate regulation. Its rivers, particularly the mighty Congo River, could generate enough hydroelectric power to illuminate much of the continent. Projects like the Inga Dam have the potential to transform Africa's energy future if managed fairly, but that is a big if. Because Congo's greatest enemy has never been foreign interest alone, it is internal division. The state remains fragile, weakened by decades of corruption, conflict, and mistrust. In the eastern provinces, dozens of armed groups continue to fight, each seeking control over mining zones or protection payments. Foreign-backed militias operate in the shadows, exploiting the chaos to smuggle resources across borders. For the people of Ituri, North Kivu, and South Kivu, war is not history. It is daily life. Villages live under the rule of militias, roads are unsafe, and millions are displaced. United Nations peacekeepers, present for more than 2 decades, have been unable to end the violence. For many locals, their presence now symbolizes international failure rather than hope. In the midst of this, global corporations continue to do business. The minerals keep flowing. The world's phones keep ringing. The silence around Congo's tragedy is as valuable as its minerals. It allows the system to continue unchecked. But silence does not last forever. The new generation of Congolese youth is connected, vocal, and unafraid. They understand how their nation's wealth feeds global technology, and they are demanding change. Through social media, film, and activism, they are bringing Congo's invisible war to the world's attention. They are asking not for charity, but for justice. Justice in the form of fair trade, transparent governance, and shared prosperity. Justice in the acknowledgement that Africa's role in the world economy cannot remain that of a perpetual supplier. If the 20th century was about political independence, the 21st century will be about economic independence, the right to own and control the fruits of one's own land, and Congo, once seen as a symbol of despair, could become the birthplace of that transformation. To achieve it, though, the country must rebuild its institutions from the ground up. Roads, schools, and hospitals are as essential as mining laws. Education is key, for without knowledge, wealth will continue to be stolen. Investment in local industries must replace the export of raw materials. Instead of sending cobalt abroad to be refined, Congo could become the heart of Africa's own battery industry, producing finished goods and creating jobs. It is not a dream. It is a possibility. But possibility requires policy, and policy requires vision. The world will not hand Congo fairness. It must demand it. Already the signs of change are visible. African think tanks and economic blocs are pushing for resource nationalism, the idea that a nation's natural wealth should serve its own people first. Countries like Namibia and Zimbabwe have banned the export of unprocessed lithium, forcing global corporations to invest locally. Congo could follow the same path with cobalt and copper. Such steps will face resistance. Global industries depend on cheap African resources, and any disruption threatens profits. But history shows that all transformations begin with defiance. The defiance of colonialism gave birth to independence. The defiance of dictatorship brought democracy. And now, the defiance of exploitation could finally bring prosperity. The war for Africa's wealth, therefore, is not only about Congo's minerals, it is about the soul of globalization itself. Will the 21st century repeat the injustices of the 19th, or will it finally correct them? Congo's struggle reminds us that beneath every product label, every green technology, every progress report, lies a moral question. What is the true cost of our convenience? For too long, the answer has been hidden beneath the soil of Africa, buried under centuries of exploitation. But as Africa rises, that truth is resurfacing. Nations are speaking with one voice, demanding partnership instead of patronage, trade instead of aid, respect instead of pity. The fate of Congo will echo far beyond its borders. It will determine whether Africa remains a warehouse of raw materials or becomes a workshop of innovation. It will test whether the world can build a future that is not only sustainable for the planet, but fair to the people who power it. In the end, the war for Africa's wealth is not only a battle of economics, it is a battle of values, between greed and justice, between domination and dignity, between the past that divided and the future that could unite. And perhaps somewhere deep in the forests of Congo, amid the roar of the river and the hum of distant machines, that future is waiting for the moment when the land of endless riches finally becomes rich for its own people. Because when that day comes, the world will not just witness the rise of a nation, it will witness the redemption of a continent.